Hello and welcome to a presentation looking at the HR changes planned for keeping children safe in education from September 2022. I'll be taking a look at the main changes in each section and also discussing what you need to be doing now to get ready for these changes. We have seen some big changes over the last 2 years in keeping children safe, and this year there are still more significant changes for you as schools to take on board and put in place. Just to be clear, keeping children safe in education has been published now, but it is not intended to be in place by schools until September 2022. However, we felt it was an ideal opportunity for you to start looking at those changes that you will need to make ready for September. So what are the key HR changes? So the first is relevant training for governors and trustees. The second is online searches for shortlisted candidates. 3 is the role of the DSL, including appropriate adult awareness. 4, changes to low-level concerns. And 5, allegations against staff members. Relevant training for governors and trustees. Let's take a look at what Keeping Children Safe says. So the early paragraphs in Part 2, the management of safeguarding, have always set out that governing bodies and trust boards have a safeguarding leadership responsibility and that you must have a senior board level lead for safeguarding. This draft now adds further clarity. The Department of Education are tightening the requirements for safeguarding and child protection training for governors and trustees. Under paragraph 81, you will need to ensure that appropriate safeguarding and child protection training is provided at induction and regularly updated. Best practice would be to ensure your governors and trustees have updated training on an annual basis as a minimum. So, 2 questions arise from this. What does appropriate look like? And what does regularly mean in this context? Let's look at appropriate. The training needs to be appropriate and should not be the same training and updates that your staff receive. Staff knowledge needs and governor trustee knowledge needs differ. Staff need operational knowledge and an understanding of what happens on the front line. Governors and trustees need an overview. Have you undertaken a safeguarding audit to see what your governor trustees know? They need to understand the bigger picture, to see data relating to safeguarding, and to understand how to appropriately support and challenge your designated safeguard lead. They need formal training and they need to be kept updated throughout the year. Let's now take a look at what regular means. So regular, safeguarding changes every year without fail and sometimes during the year. Therefore, we recommend a minimum annual refresher and ongoing knowledge transfer throughout the year. In other words, the same approach as you take for staff, but not the same content. DSL should factor in the governor trustees' knowledge needs when planning how they will ensure everyone, that includes staff, governors, trustees, and the safeguarding lead governor, is up to date throughout the year with safeguarding changes and reminders. You may be asked to demonstrate Ofsted what training has been developed and adapted for governors, how you can prove they have carried out the training, what actions have been put in place as a result of that training, and what are they doing to test and challenge information received from SLT. Several paragraphs have been added this year to the section in Keeping Children Safe on Education, and this includes the Human Rights Act, Equality Act, and Public Sector Equality Opportunity. These additions provide clear links between the legal duty of the school and safeguarding. You will therefore need to ensure your management team are up to date and how they impact on safeguarding practice. Keeping Children Safe in Education is now advising that schools consider online searches as part of due diligence checks on shortlisted candidates. This should not be carried out prior to shortlisting for risk of discrimination and unconscious bias. It is also worth noting that in the consultation draft guidance, the requirement was schools and colleges should consider carrying out an online search, including social media. The words including social media now do not feature in the release guidance. However, this does not mean you cannot use social media. So let's break down this statement. Should consider. As you know, keeping children safe in education is statutory guidance, so we know should really means must. So unless you have a very good reason to depart from the guidance, you need to follow it. As part of the shortlisting process, we only need to take this step on those we shortlist, not all applicants. This means amending our process to add in this step. Help identify any incidents or issues. This is the crux of the why and helps us to focus on what we are looking for, things said or done that would either harm the reputation of your school or the trust or make the candidate unsuitable to work with children. Publicly available online. This is important. We do not need to delve into the private lockdown content of social media accounts. All we are looking for is information that is available to anyone through the usual search engines and websites. We should not be asking candidates to provide us with login details for social media accounts so we can trawl through that content. Might want to explore with the applicant and interview. Note the might. We can determine that the content is so serious that we opt to bring the recruitment process to an end. If we continue, we put the content to the candidate at interview, in the same way would any issues in a reference or adverse information on a DBS check or self-disclosure. As a school, you will need to adapt your recruitment policy, including a framework to undertake this new recruitment step. There are two options for you to consider in carrying out online checks. One could be the outsourcing tech approach, or two, a more manual in-house approach. So let's take outsourcing tech approach. Some of you may already use digital safer recruitment and onboarding platforms in your recruitment process. Those platforms will want to be looking to offer to support you with online searches in the near future. The cost of a tech approach will depend on the provider, but this could range from anywhere between £20 to £100 per person. You will receive a report and then you need to consider next steps and look at what risks there are to your processes. Let's look at the in-house approach. This will add another layer to your recruitment process for candidates that are shortlisted, and ideally would need to be carried out by someone who is unconnected to the recruitment process. This person will require training on how to search and what information to filter out. You need to decide what your school wishes to do to comply with carrying out online searches. The most popular platforms will be Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. So what are you looking for? Anything that calls into question the candidate's suitability to work with children and or causes harm to the reputation of your school or trust. This means we are looking for anything that would be considered inappropriate or offensive behaviours, discrimination, drug or alcohol misuse, and inappropriate photos or videos in line with standards that are expected for the role. What time frame do I need to consider? You will need to consider what you feel is a reasonable time frame. You could consider 6 years is reasonable in line with the requirement to hold staff records and produce references. Or you may feel that this is too long and want to agree something shorter. Over time, the sector will reach a standard approach, as we always do. But until then, You need to make a decision for your school. What action to take? So after the content has been collated, it should be passed to your recruitment team person so that they can consider this as part of the wider recruitment process. Much is the same way as they do with DBS disclosures. From there, schools can either end the process for the candidate or put to them the content that has been found and ask them to provide context in relation to the role and ethos of the school. You would also want to look to keep records of those conversations and actions. It is sensible to start work now looking at this. Review your recruitment process and policy and add in this new step. Consider if you need to undertake a risk assessment and whether you want to collate together a set of standard questions and anticipated responses to adverse content so that you can be consistent in how you manage this new requirement. You will also want to ensure that you are telling your candidates in the adverts that you are going to be carrying out these checks. It is also worth looking into the digital onboarding platforms to see how they can support you. We hope to bring you some more information on this in September, so please watch this space. We've been advising for a long time on our Safer Recruitment course that schools should not accept CVs. In Keeping Children Safe 2022, CVs are allowed to be accepted. However, this is only alongside a fully completed application form. CVs continue to be rejected as a standalone document. You'll need to be mindful what might be on a CV that you would not ask for as part of your standard application. Some people like to add a photo. Would this cause unconscious bias if you didn't like the look of a person? You should only use information presented on a CV to assess your shortlisting criteria and not make any other judgments of the applicant. Let's look at the changes of the role of the DSL, including appropriate adult awareness. Schools should be adding this to the safeguarding and child protection training. They need to ensure that they can make sure your designated safeguard lead has the appropriate status and authority to carry out their job. Governing bodies need to give the DSL the additional time, funding, training, resources and support needed to carry out their role effectively. This is detailed in paragraph 103. Online safety is a running and interrelated theme whilst devising and implementing whole school or college approach to safeguarding and related policies procedures. This has now been specified as a responsibility of governing bodies and proprietors and is set out in paragraph 136. The leadership team and relevant staff are aware of and understand the filters and monitoring systems in place, manage them effectively and know how to escalate concerns. That is set out in paragraph 140. Your school has procedures to manage any safeguarding concerns, no matter how small, or allegations that do not meet the harm threshold, i.e. low-level concerns, about staff members, including supply staff, volunteers and contractors. And for this information, see paragraph 151. The child protection policy reflects that children with special educational needs or disabilities, SEND, or certain medical or physical health conditions can face additional barriers, including cognitive understanding, being unable to understand the difference between fact and fiction in online content, and then repeating the content behaviours in schools or colleges, or the consequences of doing so, and that is set out in paragraph 198. The second part here is, we assume, in response to the safeguarding claim around child Q, who was strip searched inside the school without an appropriate adult present to ensure the correct process is followed. It is important your school has an awareness that this is now a requirement. Changes to low-level concerns. Part 4 in Keeping Children Safe in Education has been renamed as Safeguarding Concerns and Allegations Made About Staff, including supply teachers, volunteers and contractors. This section now provides some additional clarity around low-level concerns. Low-level concerns can arise in several ways from various sources, e.g. suspicion, complaint or a disclosure. Schools should have procedures in place for confidentially sharing low-level concerns and clarity around the role of the DSL and head teacher in this. The head teacher should be the ultimate decision maker in respect of all low-level concerns, although they may wish to consult the DSL to take a more collaborative approach. This is detailed in paragraph 432 of Keeping Children Safe in Education. If you are in any doubt as to whether a low-level concerns meets the harm threshold, then consult your local authority designated officer. In the examples of adult behaviour that could be a low-level concern, Keeping Children Safe in Education has replaced sexualised language with humiliating pupils. We will be looking to liaise with Kent Local Authority with a view to getting guidance out to school about these low-level concerns. Allegations against staff members. There is a new section on discipline and the alleged perpetrators set out in paragraphs 543 to 545 in Keeping Children Safe in Education. After many years, there is now a firm change that schools can carry out disciplinary action even when there is an ongoing police investigation. However, this still will need to be done in liaison with the LADO and police, as you'd want to ensure that you are not prejudicing a police investigation. Keeping Children Safe in Education states that the DSL should take the lead role. However, what if this was against the head teacher or SLT member? Would that be reasonable? It states that the disciplinary action can be taken whilst other investigations are ongoing, i.e. by the police. However, it still also states that you need to consider if you did start to take action, would this prejudice against any other investigation? So the same cautious approach should be taken if there is a potential criminal investigation. And I would advise liaison with the LADO and police should take place before commencing any action. Next steps. So please do remember that nothing comes into effect until the 1st of September 2022. Those next steps are to train your staff on Keeping Children Safe in Education 2022, consider changes to your child protection policy, check your staff behaviour code of conduct policy includes low-level concerns, allegations against staff and whistleblowing. Ensure the DSL and SLT understand the role of an appropriate adult. Make sure you have procedures in place for confidently sharing low-level concerns that is likely to be set out in your child protection policy and await local authority guidance. Look at CPD for governors and how they will receive regular up-to-date training. Revisit your recruitment policy and consider how to add online checks or searches for shortlisted candidates. Thank you for listening to our information and updates in relation to Keeping Children Safe in Education 2022. Thank you.